Hello everyone, Q here, and today we have the next episode of our monster book series. And today we're taking a look at the TSR Fiend Folio. This is, of course, was for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or AD&D. It says Fiend Folio, Tomb of Creatures, Malevolent and Benign, by Don Turnbull. There's the front. Here's the back. This tomb contains alphabetical listings of monsters designed for use with the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons game system. Each creature is described, and most are illustrated for easy identification. I like how it clarifies it and says most, and not all. All right, let's go ahead and crack this book open, and let's look through it. Like before, I'm not going to go through every monster and creature. I'm pretty much just gonna flip through it and kind of pick out the monsters that I either used in the campaign or seen frequently used in campaigns as I played the game throughout the years. So here we go. Got the forward, alphabetical table of contents. We know this is a much bigger table of contents than for the Monster Manual 2, just simply because they outline all the monsters rather than just saying, hey, this is the page range you're going to find the monsters. Explanatory notes. Again, just like with the other book, we have our breakdown of different things: movement, number of attacks, treasure type, intelligence, magic resistance, all the various stats. All right, here we go with the A section with the Aarakocra, which is a monster that I have used before. The Algoid. It's a pretty decent art for its time, in my opinion. I think these pictures still capture the essence of the creatures quite well. The Apparition. Burbling. Bloodworm. A lot of these creatures I've actually ended up using in various campaigns. Bullywug. Pretty cool. And I do like the art styles in this book. I know one of the things that drew me to some of the creatures in previous books is the various art styles, and I like how there's a lot of stippling in these books and a lot of crosshatch, and sometimes, like in the case of this picture, you have a couple different drawing styles used in the same picture. I always thought that was really cool. I've always tried to be somewhat of a art aficionado, and I like different art styles and drawing styles and stippling and cross hatching and all those various things. So I think it's really cool when you see these various artistic approaches used in the artwork, especially in that of old, as in like in this book, the Death Knight. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the Death Knight was ever portrayed in a game before this. If anybody knows better, please correct me, but I know, especially nowadays, Death Knight's a pretty popular type of character class to use, not just in these kind of games, but also in the MMORPGs and that kind of thing, where some of them are actually playable classes. So, but as far as I know, this is the very first time the Death Knight is actually mentioned or used in a D&D setting in terms of being an encounterable monster. Of course, we know that many of us have been playing D&D long enough or aware of, Lord Soth and his Death Knights, and the story behind that. Of course, that's a topic for different. We could talk for hours on that, actually. So try not to get too far. And here's Lolth. We mentioned Lolth in Monster Manual 2, and how Driders are created. Here we are going into the Devils again. Dogs, Doombats, various dragons. Here we go more into like the Oriental style dragons. At least that's how they look to me. Li Long, Long Wang, Pan Long, Shen Long, Tian Long, Yu Long, Carp Dragon. I thought that was funny. Every time I see this picture, I always think on the dragonfish. That would be terrible stepping on something like that in real life. You have some elemental lords. Some more elemental creatures. The Drow Elf. Ettercap. Fire Drake, Fire Newt, and some pretty cool artwork. guarding the fire newt. Some more elemental style creatures along with the flail snail, which I just saw an up-to-date artwork piece on the flail snail and I thought it was quite good. I don't remember which book it was in, but I'm sure as we continue on this series we'll see it. More giants, like the fog giant there, which is more of like a tween elemental type creature. Of course, the Gith Yankee, which is on the cover of this book. And the Githzerai. The Grell, which was a fairly common used creature. I've been more than one encounter with those throughout the years. Hukiva. Ice lizards. The Kelpie. That's an unfortunate situation right here. Definitely would not want to be that person, or this person actually. Right, the Kenku, the Kuatoa, which is still fairly widely used creature to this very day. Same with the Lamia. Of course, we can see the art style of the times back then. Of course, with the art style, you get away with not covering up people. And here is one of my favorite pieces of artwork in this book, probably of all time, especially for the style of artwork here, where we have the lizard guys here attacking this guy, or I should say, attacking and failing. This poor sucker right here paid the price. Lizard King, another cool piece of artwork right here. And another pretty cool piece of artwork right there. Measle, the Meanlock. Now I haven't used all of these monsters. Some of them I'd say I used a fair amount of these monsters. And it's actually been a while since I've used any of them recently. So it's pretty cool to kind of go back and check out the old artwork and check out these monsters and kind of revisit them. What was your favorite monster in this book, if you used it? Any of you who were around during the AD&D days, did you have the Fiend Folio? Did you use it? What were some of your favorite monsters to use? Now, I know monster usage is subjective and it depends on the campaign and whatever. Certain monsters are going to fit certain campaigns better than others for sure. But I know for me, there are a lot of campaign styles and a lot of settings that I like to reuse just simply because they're, considered classics or old favorites or whatnot, which tend to use the same kind of creatures more often. So I know for me that was some of these are, of course, and then you have your classics like your Skeleton Warrior. And of course, many remember from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoons, we have the Shadow Demon, which was used. Then we have our Slods, which are, of course, anyone who's ever encountered a Slod know that they're absolutely horrible to deal with, especially with all their poisons and magic resistances and all those kinds of things. They can be a nightmare to deal with, especially the Slod Lords right here. Sons of Caius. The Swarfneblin, or the Deep Gnomes. I really like the textures on this drawing right here for the Susurrus. Symbiotic Jelly, Tabaxi, Throat Leech. Never used that, but it looks like it would be a very unpleasant thing. Two-headed giant troll, ice troll. I like using trolls. Trolls have always come in handy to use in various campaign settings. The Vodyanoi, which is basically a cousin of the Umber Hulk. Used that before. The Volt, Vortex. I always like using elemental style encounters just because it's really hard to fight them. You know, especially with something like wind or fire. I mean, how do you cut fire? I know, how do you use a standard, you know, weapon on something like air? You know, it makes it to where your players really have to think about how they're gonna um, take on this type of creature. That's if they're just gonna take it on. You know, in most cases, it's better if they just run. And more zombies. Yellow musk. Another really cool picture. One of my favorites of all time in these older books, for sure. Treasure type tables. I really like these. I still use these treasure type tables from time to time too, because I like how they were put together, especially regarding magical items. And you have your monster level table, and then you have, you know, stuff for potions and all that. I just really like the structure that they had back then, you know, in your different items based on your monsters and the level of monster, and then of course you had your terrain encounters and all that kind of thing. You know, dragon sub table, you know, specifically made for dragons if you want to kind of have a random dragon encounter. And the artwork along with all these pages for me is just fantastic. Still love it to this very day. And even though it's just black and white, mostly hand drawings, for its time, I think it's held up quite well, and I'm willing to put it up with almost any of the artwork that's out there today. Of course, you had some that was not as good as others. In my opinion, this is one of the weaker artwork pieces in the book, but still, I mean, it still fits, and it still has that classic and legendary feel to it. Of course, Gen Con, back when it was in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Some of you may not remember that. But there you have it, the Fiend Folio. Fantastic book. I do recommend this. They're kind of hard to get now, and if you want to find them in fairly decent condition, they are relatively expensive. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have this book, enjoy this book or not, if you're enjoying this series, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.